Hey, what's up everybody? It's Brian Dean from QuickSprout, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to create list posts that grow your blog's traffic. So first of all, why do you want to create list posts? Well, in general, when done right, they tend to perform very well. As you can see here, Neil published a post called 101 Motivational Business Quotes, and it's performed exceptionally well on social media. It has over 700 Facebook likes and almost 400 tweets. And if you head over to Ahrefs, you can see that the post has more than 90 backlinks. And if you search for the very competitive high volume keyword business quotes, you can see that QuickSprout is ranking number 2. Now, how can you do the same thing for your blog? Well, your first step is to come up with a topic for your list post. Now, if you're in, let's say, the baking niche, you wouldn't want to create something like this, baking tips. Because in general, list posts that are tightly focused tend to perform better than broad list posts. So if you're in the baking niche, you'd want to do something like cookie baking tips, right? Because that's more tightly focused, and that for some reason tends to get a lot more attention. So your next step, once you've come up with your topic, is to determine how many items you want in your list. And this may sound kind of trivial, but it's actually really important because people perceive numbers in very different ways. So in general, if you're just going to have a list of tips, you want it to be an odd number, okay? So like 7, 25, 77, something like that, okay? Now, if you're ranking them, if you're coming up with like the top whatever, then you'd want to use even numbers like 10, 100, things like that. And you notice that if you ever look at magazines, whenever they rank like the best rap albums of all time, it's always like a top 50 or 100. And then if you look at fashion magazines, when they give tips, it's always like 4, makeup tips, and those are odd numbers. So that's one important thing to keep in mind. So once you've determined what type of list post you're going to make, you want to see what's already out there. So put in a keyword that either you're targeting or it's related to your niche or your list into Google and see what's in the top 10. And as you can see here, we have top 10 tips, top 10 tips, top 20. Okay, so in general, you want to beat what's already out there. All right, so you don't want to come up with another top 5 or top 10. You'd want to beat them by coming up with, let's say, top 25. Okay, but you could also go up to 50 or 100 or 55, depending on how you want to approach the list post and depending on how badly you want to beat your competition with your list post. So once you've done that and you have it's 25 tips, or you want to do 50, or whatever number you decide, it's time to brainstorm topic ideas. Okay, so in this case, I just put a little list here, brainstorming ideas, and you'd want to add your own. So just come up with as many as you can off the top of your head from your personal experience from baking cookies. Now, another place to get really good ideas for list posts is Topsy.com, which is basically a search engine for content that has been shared on social media. So what you want to do is put in a keyword related to your list, like baking cookies or cookie baking, and click the orange magnifying glass button. And this will show you content that has performed well on Twitter and other social media sites. So what you can do is you can either keep the default setting, which is the past 5 days, or you can just click all time. And what that'll do is to show you like the all-time most shared content in Topsy related to your niche. You can also go back to the top 10 in Google and just look at what your competition has already come up with. And you obviously don't want to just copy their list, but it can be a great way to get ideas. So what I like to do is look at the top 10. So for example, we have this post from the top 10, 20 tips for making and baking great cookies. So you want to look here and maybe, you don't want to copy one of the items from the list, but it may give you an idea and help you remember something that you did once that worked well for baking cookies. Now, I like to keep everything organized for list posts, so it's not a bad idea to keep a little spreadsheet like this and put your tips and where you found them and how to reach out to that person. Now, for the tips that you brainstorm, okay, so the ones that are like this, you obviously don't have to include these in the spreadsheet. But if you're doing a lot of research, so if you don't know the topic well and you got most of your information from other sources, it's not a bad idea to put the tips here and then the source and the contact info. That way, when you actually write the post, you know who to cite, and then you can reach out to them, let them know about the post, and then they may share it on social media. Now, once you have a number of items in your brainstorm list, you may also want to add categories to them. Now, not everyone does this, but I actually like to do this for most list posts, especially long ones. You want to break them down into categories. So as you can see here, I have one about finding recipes, another one about ingredients, and then some advanced tips at the end, okay? So that's just a simple trick to make your list post a little more shareable and a little more readable, especially if you have more than, let's say, 25 items on the list. Now, your next step is to format the list post in an attractive way. Now, there's no magical way to do this, but in general, the most important thing is to keep everything consistent, okay? That's the most important thing. So if you have lists like this, where you highlight the item and then have a little description, read the recipe, that's not in bold, you want to keep that consistent throughout the entire list post, okay? Now, also, let's say that you wanted to number them. You'd want to number them the same way throughout, okay? So that's really important. And in general, you want to number the items in your list post. It's not absolutely necessary, but it does make the list post look a little more readable. And believe it or not, when people see 25 tips in the headline and they actually read the article and there's no numbers, they feel like there might not be 25 tips. So you have to, they kind of want to see proof. So if you number them, it adds kind of evidence that you've actually fulfilled the promise of the headline and added the number of tips that you promised, okay? It sounds trivial, it sounds kind of stupid, but it's actually true. You definitely want to number them. Now, next, you also want to make sure you have everything, now that it looks okay, all formatted nice, however you want to do it, your next step is to add media. Okay, so you want to add media. A lot of people think that because they create a list post, I can kind of get away with not adding images and videos and screenshots and things like that. But I've found that you can add a lot of value to a list post by adding media. So what you do is click Add Media in WordPress and then upload a file. I have one about recipes that I thought looked nice in the post, as you can see here. Okay, so you'd want to include this wherever you want inside of your list post and add as many screenshots, just like you would with a normal blog post, okay? So, if you're in the internet marketing or something like that, you use screenshots. If you're into baking, you'd want to include pictures of food, right? So whatever works best with your niche, but don't skimp on the multimedia on the list post, because it's one way you can help your list post stand out. Now, finally, once you have all your lists together, you have multimedia, it's numbered, it looks nice, your last thing to do is to encourage people to add to the list. Now, this is really important. I see a lot of people who publish list posts make this mistake. The great thing about list posts is that they seem kind of accessible and easy to make, so you can easily encourage people to leave comments to add their tips to the list. So, you put something like, one more thing, are there any cookie baking tips you think I missed? If so, leave a comment below to let me know what it is. All right, and that way someone reads that, they read the whole list post, and they say, hey, I have one, and they'll leave a comment. And a lot of times if you don't include this at the bottom, people won't participate nearly as much. So that's all there is to creating a list post. You definitely want to create a tightly focused topic. The tighter, the better, okay? So don't create a general list post. And then you want to break down your list into categories. If you are creating a long list post, brainstorm the ideas and then look for what's already out there and then beat that content and maybe incorporate some things that other sites have come up with and link to them as a reference, and then reach out to them once you publish the post to let them know that they've been referenced, so then they can share your post. So that's it. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.